Democratic Congressman Charlie Rangel says President Obama did not have the constitutional authority to launch a military operation in Libya without congressional approval.
Since we don't have a draft, it's their kids that are the ones that are going to be hurt or killed. And so the Constitution is clear that when you say that their families back home is going to make this ultimate sacrifice, then you have to have a vote. As it is now, it's very difficult to know, except what the president told us, as to what authority does he have, except other presidents have done the same thing. And I still think other presidents are wrong for doing it.
What do you think should be the consequence? What should Congress do moving forward, given that no vote was taken to authorize military intervention in Libya?
What, no vote? It wasn't taken?
Right, wasn't taken. So what do you think should be?
I thought you meant instead of an aye, they had a no. We should try to clear this thing up. We cannot put this thing in rewind and then think that we can make any changes. Commitments had been made, and no matter whether the president is right or wrong, when our country speaks, it speaks, and we have an obligation to have credibility in the international community. But the truth of the matter is, we ought to really have a bipartisan assembly of the Congress to find out, does it really want to forfeit their constitutional right and obligation to be involved whenever Americans are going to be attacking other countries and involved in what can only be described as war?
Given what you're saying, that the president's action is not constitutional, it doesn't go, it goes against the Constitution. What do you think? Do you think that's an impeachable offense, acting in a unilateral way without congressional approval in Libya?
Well, you know, if the Congress, if the House of Representatives are the ones to determine whether or not it's an impeachable defense, there's a vehicle for that set up in the Constitution, which is much like a grand jury. And if they did find that it was impeachable, then of course the trial would be in the Senate. And so there is a way before we do anything to try to find out whether there's facts that should be investigated. I don't think there's enough there to do that because of the nation's concern. That's once again something I wasn't even thinking about until you raised it. It is the Congress that feels the pulse of the nation. And I would suggest to you, just as in a regular jury, that if indeed there were technical violations of the Constitution, it would be the Congress, especially the House, that's elected every 2 years, that would be able to vote the way they think what America would want them to vote. So again, it shows the genius of the founders of the Constitution to have these checks and balances without technically being bound. But presidents don't have the right to take that broad flexibility from the Congress on their own unilaterally.
So you don't think impeachment should be examined, given what you're saying about him not having the authority?
Examine is a very broad word. I'd like to believe that lawyers, constitutionalists, and members of Congress are looking at that every day, every time that there's a kid that's been assigned to a war that has not been declared. I like to believe that's being studied and looked into.
Rangel's comments were made after a briefing for members of the House of Representatives on the military operation in Libya with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Defense Secretary Robert Gates. Nicholas Balassi, CNSnews.com, The Capitol.